So, um, we don't
Oh, that's better.
have the August financials out yet. We are working on a budget, which is due to the mayor tomorrow. So that's taking up our whole life right now. But yesterday I did get new numbers from Department of Revenue for September, which, as you know, are actually numbers for July. So this first one is sales tax, and I put together this little trend for the mayor that I thought I would just update and send to you all as well. So the last couple months, as you can see, we've had our best sales tax numbers ever, which kind of corresponds with how active it's been out here at the city. Prior to that, it was getting a little dreary with the closures for the COVID, but it's bouncing back. We can expect another good couple months for August and September. Did talk to Diane this morning on our staff meeting call, and she's noticed a significant decline in activity since Labor Day. So I think we've all probably noticed that out here. But over the next couple months, we should be looking good as well, because it's been a very busy August and September up through Labor Day. So that's sales tax. The next one is hotel motel. So again, really good month for July, which is helping bring that back up from the May, June numbers. Like we've been hearing, the hotels have been just at capacity, so it totally makes sense that revenue is looking really good. Again, October, November, we should see some additional money coming in, and then should slow down again in December as a result of just the decrease in activity. It's slowed down quite a bit.
So, okay, so I'm looking at the bottom of the screen, right?
Yep, September,
Okay.
that 173.
I got it. I'm following. I was just trying to look at the numbers. Okay, I got it.
Yep. So we're making a comeback. As you can see, May and June looked pretty dreary, but we've slowly been ticking back up, so that's good. We're still being
just back to the sales tax. There are just a couple things that the state just released their numbers, and their numbers are dramatically better than what they thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
And then, even though that Diane may have said that we slowed down, just remember that we always slow down. So
Yeah.
From a comp point of view, I think that all the businesses are still going to be ahead of where they were. It just that the businesses drop off, but it drops off every year, whether it's
absolutely
or not.
Yep.
Yeah,
Totally
when I did the year over year on the sales tax, it looks like we're up about $40,000 over same time last year.
Yeah, we are back up. I think it's 5% for September.
Yeah. So that was good.
Yeah, we're still, being very conservative with our numbers going into the next biennium, which you'll see coming up as we present the budget, because we just don't know still.
Right.
That those hotel motel tax numbers are perfect examples. We can go from 11,000 one month to 170,000. So it's been so all over the place that, we just have to keep being conservative, because we don't really know what the future holds for us at this point.
Yeah. Well, and on the hotel motel tax, even though we had some really good months, we're still under year over
Catching
year
up.
last year too. Yeah. So that makes.
Yeah, I think it's 11% for September.
Yeah.
Still down. So
yeah.
And then, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was the agenda item for the budget schedule. So due to the fact that the budget amendment is not coming back to council on September 28th, Monday, this schedule is making some recommendations to push out the budget delivery to the council. Quite honestly, if I give you a budget on October 12th per the current schedule, it's gonna be not accurate. So it's pointless for us to do a budget to push out to you guys to make decisions on when we know it's not correct. So these changes in here, basically it's pushing out the date we get the council to the budget to council to the statutory deadline, which is November 2nd. Clearly, if we don't have a budget out October 12th, we can't have a study session on October 19th to talk about a budget we don't have. So Sarah, if you scroll to the next page, I'll show you where we change those. We have to keep the public hearings and stuff on track because we do have statutory deadlines for those. So I did not change any of those. But the budget delivery is now November 2nd and the council study session is November 16th. I did talk to the auditors this morning. There's still no exit date set. It's still pending. She's anticipating having field work done by the end of this month, but we're probably looking at mid-October at the earliest for an exit date. So if that does happen, we get that budget amendment approved in October at some point, then the November 2nd budget, if we push it out, then we'll have the accurate figures in there. So that's kind of where we're at.
Say, just a quick question on the budget exit. How is it decided who gets to sit in on those? I know, we kind of missed the entrance thing, but we can only have 3 council members on there. I'm sure,
Correct.
Frank and Susan and Catherine, but since they were on the entrance part of it, because I would like to be on the exit part, can we figure a way out who's going to be on there at some point?
Yeah, if you want to request to go, I just keep a list of who asks first, basically. So Bob has already asked to attend. So Eric, if you want to be added to that list,
Yep.
I can add you as well. Just whoever I hear from first is how I do it. And with the entrance, it was Frank, Susan, and Catherine.
Gotcha.
Okay, I think Frank made a comment at the council meeting, the last council meeting, that he wanted to be there because that's when he would get his questions answered. So I don't know if that constitutes asking or not.
Well, if it's for the good of the order and it's going to solve some problems, I'll step away and you can put Frank on there, if that's would serve justice, so to speak.
Well, I'm just thinking it's you and Eric, and the third person could be Frank.
Okay.
The council member.
All right.
Okay. Any questions on budget schedule?
I do. The budget schedule, it totally makes sense because it makes no sense for you to create 2 budgets for us to look at it. And I think that it's like we all know that whatever is presented, a lot of times what the mayor presents will be different because some departments or committees just ask for everything. But so I'm fine with how it works out. But my question is, okay, so if we don't get response from the auditors, or the auditors' responses and the 3 are still unhappy with that, then what do we do with the budget amendment?
It just sits pending. So the budget that you will get on November 2nd, which I have to give council a budget per state law, you're gonna have to back into the numbers is what you're gonna have to do, because the budget amendment is amending our ending fund balances, which are our beginning fund balances for 21 and 22. And we're making internal decisions based on how much money we know is going to be available. But if those numbers aren't pushed into the budget, you're going to see a bunch of negative numbers and a bunch of funds, and you're going to have to go back and do the math to figure out how that's going to look. So it's going to be really, really hard on council. And quite honestly, I'm not required to prepare 2 budgets. So if I prepare one on October 12th, it's not going to be correct, but I'm not required to prepare another one on November 2nd because the first one wasn't correct. So you're going to have to work off whatever budget we give you. So whether it has the correct numbers in it, the updated numbers, or the non-updated numbers, that's what council's going to get and have to work through.
And say that worst case scenario, that we never approve the budget amendment, what happens?
We're gonna the council will have to cut out a ton of stuff is what's going to happen, and balance the budget to make sure there's no negative fund balances. But then we're basically going to have to do another big budget amendment next year to add everything back in, if that's what council wants to do.
Well, but I guess where I struggle a little bit is, okay, so if we don't have the votes for a supermajority now, there's a good likelihood that we won't ever have the votes going forward. And so for us to fix it, we won't be able to fix it.
My understanding is that the audit results will help people better decide if they want to vote yes or no on that budget amendment. So I'm hoping once we get that addressed, that'll, council will want to bring that budget amendment back, because like I said, if we don't get that budget amendment into the budget, council's going to have to cut out a bunch of stuff and then add it back in the hard way. So
help me again, just remind me of the date that we're going to get that budget, the audit back.
My best guess is mid-October for an exit date.
Okay.
So if we have the budget amendment approved at either October council date, we can get those updates in the budget that would come out on November 2nd.
Okay.
But
We got a little bit of time to play with, but not a lot.
Yeah. If we do not get the budget amendment in October, it's going to make it very difficult. I don't know what else to say.
So, and I'm just curious going forward, because everything in that budget amendment was passed by the council. So once it's passed, can't you, I mean, is it a procedure or state, MSRC deal that you just add that up and then we do a budget amendment? Or could you put language in when we pass it that it could go into the budget at that time?
We have to do an ordinance, and that is the part that's missing. So as every amendment we've brought to council, it's been kind of a separate agenda item. It's been a request or, whatever else. But in the end, to actually do a budget amendment to update our system, we have to have an ordinance, which is what we're trying to get past, to the missing piece.
Is there anything that we could do where we could, in the future going forward, that as bills come up, that we pass or whatever we need to do, so because we're approved it, so we don't have to go do a budget amendment?
No, we have to do budget amendments. That's the law.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll see what happens, but my concern is going forward that this council or any other council could hold up the budget process just by voting no.
And you have to remember the council has responsibilities. We're meeting all of our internal responsibilities. We're following the budget calendar. We're complying with all the laws. And at some point, I'm turning this over to council. And at that point, it's your responsibility to do your part and make sure you're complying with all the laws. And if we don't get a budget approved or pass a budget that is unbalanced, that's going to be on council. So this becomes your responsibility at some point.
Yep. And like I said, John, going forward, how do we deal with this? But I have a question. Have you ever seen this, Angie, or I'd probably be a question for Steve or Mayor? Has this ever happened in the past where a budget amendment got held up like this?
No, I've never seen that.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the first time, and what do we do, right? And I'm still not sure why it's being held up when everything was passed by the council anyway. So I haven't heard an answer to that question of why it's being held up, other than they want to, hear from the auditors what's going on, but that's not going to change what the auditors say or don't say.
Correct.
Exactly.
And when so how long typically after the exit interview or exit that we do we get the actual written documentation?
They say 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
Angie, do we have anything yet on taxes, property taxes next year?
No.
And when do we expect that?
Those should be coming anytime. But nope, haven't seen anything yet. We have all of our estimates done already, but we just need to get their stuff and make sure it's looking correct.
So let me ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
So budget amendment scenario, budget amendment doesn't get passed and we go into the next year without a budget. And will there things be program services automatically cut at that time, at the first of the year? Because we're going to be
Technically-
negative in a lot of areas.
Yeah, technically you're not supposed to spend any money without having a budget passed. So that would be a legal question for Brent, but I know every time the legislature runs into this, they threaten to close operations down, and then they always end up approving a budget at the last minute.
Okay, so we would then vote like we are at this point in time, and the city would just have to stop paying anything to anybody?
I mean,
It's a shutdown.
I don't see how we would do that, but I think you're supposed to do that. Yes.
Well, that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then I think that needs to become common knowledge. Then.
I think we'd have to ask Brent to be sure
Yeah.
that works legally, but you're not supposed to pay bills without having a budget passed. So
Well, the answer to that question is going to be interesting.
yeah,
That might change some things, you know, some people's attitudes. I'm not sure, but it's something to really think about.
yeah.
Not fun.
So just kind of a side note, the new calendar is obviously gonna give council 3 weeks less of time to go through a budget as well. So there's that I know that in years past, we've heard that there's not enough time to go through it already, but we're cutting it another 3 weeks short at this point.
Yep.
But
Well,
I
It
mean,
is what it is.
I don't want to give council necessarily a budget that is not useful. It's not going to be useful or helpful or help guide decisions. So
Yeah, well, just hopefully when you can give us a full budget, it's a good budget that works well, that we don't have to spend a lot of time on.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we won't have the time to do it, so it is what it is.
right.
Yep, exactly.
So Angie, I have some other questions that are unrelated
Okay.
to that. So my one question that has just been driving me crazy as I've been talking to some other cities, do we know how much debt that we've incurred having water, providing services for water that we would normally shut off?
I would have to get an updated list. I can find out.
Okay, and do you have any idea whether or not COVID funds would be available for the city's shortfall?
We cannot use COVID funds for revenue losses. So
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right, okay, because I would be interested, because I just have in talking to PUD, you know, that they are starting to forecast what their loss is going to be, because they don't think that they're going to be able to recover them, which to me makes
Yeah.
sense, but how much that
Yeah.
is. At the last council meeting, you know, it was brought up about setting up a schedule to review fees. And I know we talked about it a couple of years ago, I think, you know, that we've talked about setting something up, you know, do you know of a city that has some type of a system in place, just, you know, to review rates?
I don't, but I can definitely ask around to my finance group and see if one of them has something.
Okay. And then just I got some pushback from some businesses that were concerned about that we passed the water connection increase
Right.
without communicating to them, although it's not a great number. you know, but they made a good point of that for them to be included because they were the ones that would be impacted.
Okay.
You know, and I don't know, I don't know, because typically when we talk about increasing fees, usually it goes to a second reading. And I know that we waived the you know, the second reading on this one.
Yeah.
It is, and maybe this is a mayor question, could we put in a thing that if we're going to increase rates or fees that, you know, that it at least goes to the second?
Well, I think that's a council thing.
Okay.
So if you guys put it in your council rules, I think that's the way it would be. And that was the intent originally, was to give time for the public to become aware of something and respond to it. Because as we had talked about, you know, there are homes that are pre-sold and the builder isn't to a point where they can put in for water connections yet. And so they're going to pay the higher rate for something they've already sold for a lower amount, because they what they figured in was what the rate was at the time they sold it. So and as quickly as homes are selling here, that is a problem for some of the builders, because it's multiple homes that they've got in that position.
Yeah, I would really like to see, you know, going forward, whether it's an ordinance or just a council rule, that anytime we're going to look at rate increases, we have a set process, no matter what it is, that we can't just, you know, kind of ram it through like we did last time, because there are ramifications to that. And, you know, it's on us that we haven't raised the rates, but it shouldn't be put on somebody else that because we haven't done that, we just have to ram it through quick. So I would really like to see whether it's an ordinance or, you know, because we got, you know, water line, there's a lot of things that people have been talking about that affect people. So we need to have, instead of whatever the council is, that's just what happens, and they get, you know, willy-nilly. So
I agree. And I think that one of the things that we should sort of make an effort to do in the future is make sure that we let the business community know if there's anything that affects any portion of it, so that they can respond quickly back to us. And there's not that many things we do that do affect them, but that was one that did, and we got some blowback on it, and rightly so.
yeah, I agree.
Can you give an example of that? What happened of any business that had impacted?
Yeah, Oil Hut
Okay, how did it impact them exactly?
already sold the houses, already got a contract. This is how much it's going to be. We raised the rate, so that's a cost that's going to, that the developer is going to have to eat.
Can't we, in a situation like that, can't we grandfather them in to the rate when they initiated the request?
We could have, but we didn't.
But can we? Right
It
now?
could be, we can't now unless council passes a new ordinance. But we could have when we were drafting the ordinance, if we had kind of known of that situation.
Right.
So
Well, I think can we examine it now?
you guys can, yes, you can actually do anything you want to do with it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We
we'd
can
have
do
to
a
write a new
redo if we
ordinance.
want.
Yeah, we'd
Sorry?
have to write a new ordinance.
You'd have
I'd like
to,
to see it.
or amend the ordinance to account for certain kinds of things.
Yeah, I would.
I'd like to
So we
see
don't
us
have it
do
on our
that, 'cause that
agenda.
seems fair.
So that'd have to be at not the next meeting, but the meeting after, because it's not on the agenda.
You could add it. You could make a motion to add.
That's true.
Let's add it.
All right, do it.
Okay.
The trouble is you can make a motion to add it, but somebody has to write
Right.
a thing, and you're going to want to have it correct, so you wouldn't want to pass it that night anyway. So it should be something that we take a little longer time with, but we
We
can
get
the-
still, I
Get the
believe we can
concept
make
out
it,
there.
yeah, we can put it back to the beginning of when it takes effect.
Yeah, we just
We
need a
can add
date.
it- We
We
can add
need
it
a
as a
date, though.
discussion to bring it back,
Mhm.
so that we can do that.
John,
Yes,
can you be that person?
I can, I can look at, yes.
And then make that motion or whatever it's going to take at the meeting.
I think it actually would be not actually that hard because we would just put a date, back the date that it actually goes into effect. Because
Right.
it has not been posted yet, has it?
No.
I don't think it's been published, no,
Okay,
The
but
ordinance,
it's probably,
the ordinance has been published and its official start
Oh.
date was today.
oh,
it couldn't, Sarah, it couldn't be the start today because it's 10 days from the date it's published.
It's 5 days from the date that it's published.
5?
Yes, and it was published and today was the date that it went into effect.
Wow, that's fast. I've not heard of it happening that fast.
Well, I think the things that we do, we can undo, and I think this is an undo situation. So
Well-
John, you like this kind of stuff, so.
well, we can talk about it, but part of it, not to diminish it, it's just where the reason why I'm bringing it up is my concern of going forward as we talk about rates or fees or whatever it's going to be, to make sure that we have enough time for people to make the comments. Because there's always unintended consequences, because I personally didn't think about the pre-sold houses until it was brought up to me.
Right.
And
Unintended consequences.
And I think all of us, everyone on the council would have, when they knew that, they probably would have thought a little bit different. Not that we would have changed what the rate increase is, because I think that's the right thing to do, but just the process.
Yeah, when it took effect.
Right, because when somebody finds out about that, don't they find that out when they go in to get a permit to build?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
what-
so. Sarah, do we have any places that's published?
The ordinance is published on File Pro currently, and then the permit office has a copy of it in their office, but they do find out when they go into that office most times.
But
Okay.
we just need to make sure it happens then.
And I think the other thing, I personally had not expected it to be taken effect right away. I had thought we were doing something for the new year, because we all talked about waiting until we were doing the budget cycle to do it. So I was a little surprised at that. And giving that kind of notice, I think, that too gives people plenty of time to respond. And you wouldn't have the pre-sold homes that haven't been completed yet.
Right. Yeah. So basically no surprises.
Yep.
There you go, John. You opened it up, finish it now.
All right, I got it. I go see we can see what we can do if anything. But again, I think just as we go forward on it, I personally was surprised that we passed it up with the waiving of the second reading. So
Well, that's how you learn, man. You make mistakes.
Yeah,
Let's just don't do it again.
right.
Yeah.
And then Angie, back to the, before the budget goes in there's nothing that we're gonna have a discussion as far as rate increases on anything.
On Monday's agenda is storm drain.
Okay,
So we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
That's the only one that I'm aware of.
And I think the biggest thing on storm drain is it's another one that hasn't changed in a long time, but also we talk about all the things we want to do on the fresh waterways, and there is no money to do those things. So we have to think, and whether it's a rate increase or something, or a planned rate increase in we'll do this in 2022, bring it back, or who knows what. But whatever, we need to start thinking about those things because we have obligations to do things.
Would a benefit district be advisable there, do you think?
You know, I think it's something that was discussed a few years back, and it was thought at that time that once we paid off the debt for the lawsuit, that there wouldn't be any need. But we're spending increasing amounts every year with the infusion program to kill the weeds, and it's eating up all of the money. That and you know, we have a program where we clear the all of the ditches and cut the brush back, and that's part of keeping our whole water system, drainage system working.
I don't know if you remember or not, but Dan Overton and I met with both committees, the Fresh Waterways Committee and the corporation, and we actually presented of how to create a benefit district. And I've still got the paperwork on it, and that seemed to be the way to go, because those people that it involved just the people that the lots and the properties that just touched the waterways. Those are the only people, and they could choose the amount that they wanted to put into the fund. You could do on a one-time basis, yearly basis, or whatever, and then where the money's kept. And all that sort of thing. It's all laid out, and it was going pretty well until a particular person on the commission decided they just didn't want to hear it anymore, and so it stopped.
Yeah, and I think one of the good things about a district like that too is the district has say in what the projects will be that it's funding.
Yeah.
So it's not all sort of the city has decided to do this. It's the people who live on the waterways have decided to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, and the canals and everything need a long-term solution, because it is, you know, getting pretty rough and silting in and everything. And I've heard a lot of different things about it, but after being on the charrette and talking to some people, there is potentially a long-term solution that doesn't use chemicals and stuff that I've been researching. It's, you know, suction dredge and how we do that. And there's a company in Wisconsin that actually builds one, but it's an expensive thing, you know, but it is a long-term solution that could take care of it without using any chemicals, anything like that, and could continue to maintain the waterways pretty well. The side effect of it, this dredge also does marinas, but so there is that. But I've just started looking into it, but it is not a cheap thing, you know, and it would take yearly funding to make it work.
Yeah, and I think, you know, other things that we talk about, you know, the Quinault have a marina for sale, and
Yeah.
when you think about what it could be down there, it could be a real vital part of the city, and it would be wonderful if we could do something like that, purchase it or find a buyer who would do the things we would like to see done. But those are all things that take money.
Yep. So.
Yep.
Not going to do it this year.
Yeah, maybe we just need to explore. Maybe we need to have some kind of exploration on what it would cost to essentially dredge those canals one way or the other.
Yeah, the dredge I looked into, there's actually a company out in Wisconsin that builds it. And you purchase the dredge. It's about $500,000 to purchase the dredge, and then you're going to need 2 to 3 people a year constantly doing it, you know, and you're just going to keep doing it. And then you have to have these geo bags that you're pumping everything into, which then you'd have fertilizer. So you're at, you know, $500,000 to buy it, $250,000 a year to maintain it. So that's kind of a ballpark figure of what it would take.
Yeah, I think the Fresh Waterways folks looked at that, and they were pretty hot on doing it for a while.
Yep.
But it was
I'm
going
hoping I
to
can.
be.
Yeah, I'd like to give all my information to Steve. You know, I know he was at the next council meeting, so.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money, and the only way you do it is a transportation or a tax or something, because you're not gonna. But at the same time, I think it's something we need to look at for sure, because you want to keep those waterways viable, and they're trying to go back to a swamp.
Well,
Exactly.
and-
If you think 20 years down the road, what is it going to look like if it's untouched?
Yep.
What's it going to look like, and what's Ocean Shores going to look like? So yeah, it takes money. I agree, but sometimes you got to keep your stuff up.
And it's part of the planning process to, maybe we can't afford to do it today, but maybe we find a mechanism to create money to put away to do it, or partially do it. Can it be done a little at a time? You know, what are the things?
Like we did with the roads.
Yep.
Yep.
Which,
I'll bring that stuff if you guys want to see that transportation benefit stuff. It's actually pretty simple. I'll bring it, and whoever wants to look at it. Well, I guess I'll never see you guys anymore. So
Yeah, I don't know where you're going to bring it. You should email it. I don't know where you're going to bring it.
Well, don't you think we'll all be living in the Zoom screen pretty soon?
you guys
won't be
all
people-
have
There won't be
mailboxes.
people anymore.
Yeah, bring it to the
You can-
post office.
No, come on, you have mailboxes at City Hall, and you
I know.
could bring
keep-
something to be copied and put in the boxes.
I
keep
could
thinking
Zoom
about
it over there. Yeah. I got it. So I'll do it. I'll do it.
Do it.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else. Anybody else have anything?
Nope.
All right. I'm gonna go work on budget.
Okay, have fun.
Yeah, thanks. It's getting close.
Good.
Well, hang
Good
in.
job.
You're
Thanks
not.
for all you're doing.
Yeah, you weren't
Thank you.
smiling all that much today.
Oh, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
So
I've got
she
3
can
more
hardly
Zoom
wait to
meetings
give it
today.
over to me.
I know, for the weekend. It's gonna be your weekend reading.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
Bye.
You all.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.